Podcast, episode 15, and welcome to our new listeners. Allow me to introduce ourselves. We are two longtime friends and super fans of comic book nerdom. I'm your friendly neighborhood DJ, Jade, along with my Cape companion. No, it's not the Spandex Spangler or the Gefilte Fish Feeler. It's the one and only Ben Pumpkin Claw Metlis.
What up?
Coming up in this episode, did Chris Pratt slip and reveal some MCU spoilers during a Jimmy Kimmel bit? Which villains are rumored to appear in this DC series? Plus, we got news from Marvel, Star Wars, and even some Harry Potter. Before we get into all that, I want to remind everyone right now we are giving away a Pop Funko figure to our YouTube listeners. All you need to do to enter is subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, comment, and share, and you will automatically be entered. We will choose one listener by random later this year and send you out this awesome Pop Funko Super Scroll. The more comments you leave, the more chances you have to win, so enter today. We have more content and giveaways coming up, so make sure to hit that notification bell to stay up to date. Well, Ben, I'm excited for today's episode. We got a lot of fun content lately, and I'm all pumped to talk about it. What about you?
Oh, yeah. Me too, man. Let's get to it.
All right, let's talk some latest news and updates. We'll start with Marvel. What did you hear?
So, I don't know if anyone watches Jimmy Kimmel here, but I do, and I watch him every morning on my way to work. And it was Guillermo's birthday on Thursday. You remember Guillermo?
Yeah.
It was his security guard for their parking lot,
Yeah,
but then became his. So for a 50th birthday present, Jimmy Kimmel had 50 stars, take 50 shots of tequila, and then he put it together in a montage. And one of them was Chris Pratt, who is with the other Guardians of the Galaxy. And right before he took the shot, he goes, "Hey, Guillermo, this is me and the rest of the Guardians. We're here filming for Thor." And then he goes, "Oh, wait, I don't think I was supposed to say that."
Oh, snap. All right, so we're going to get some Guardians of the Galaxy in Thor?
Love and Thunder, yeah.
I don't know if that's a total shock. I think a lot of people might have expected that.
I'm sure it's something they didn't want anyone to know. Like, I'm sure, like, there were predictions and people assumed, but, you know, it's just funny seeing Chris Pratt have the Tom Holland moment.
I was going to say all these moments where people slip and
he
let things revealed.
Like, whoops, I don't think I was supposed to say that. And then he took a shot at tequila. And I don't think anyone else would have picked up on it, but being a comic book nerd, I was just like, that's awesome. And then I got excited because now the full Guardians of the Galaxy will be in Thor, Love, and Thunder.
Well, moving on from there, let's talk some more fun. And again, take this with a grain of salt and everything. But you know how we've been hearing a lot of Deadpool 3 news lately, right? And, you know, there's maybe some rumors that this might take place during the events of Infinity War and Endgame, and Deadpool might be trying to find his own Infinity Stone and blah, 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 blah. But what's kind of funny is before all that was supposed to be rumored, Ryan Reynolds said what his Deadpool 3 would have been like had the Fox X-Men universe still been around. And I guess jokingly, it was said that the movie would have been Deadpool 3, him and Wolverine, just on a car ride, like on a road trip. And I thought that would be fucking hilarious, man. I would watch it.
If I won that $1 billion Powerball, I
You'd
would
make that movie?
I would give Hugh Jackman any amount of money he wanted. I'd be
To do
like,
that
dude,
movie?
do you want $1 billion? Like
A driving Miss Daisy, but of Deadpool and Wolverine?
Yeah, or even a Thelma and Louise with Deadpool and Wolverine.
Or going back to Logan, where he's the limo driver, remember? In the beginning, that's how he makes a living, to try to save for money. What if he's the driver and Deadpool's his passenger? That could be hilarious. Now, although, you know, this is all said and fun, and obviously this isn't going to happen. Now, there are these rumors of a Spider-Man and Deadpool movie, and seeing how well Marvel's doing right now with a show like WandaVision, where they're doing something so outside the box, could you see a day where we get a Spider-Man Deadpool movie where it's not this action movie, it's a comedy.
It's a buddy comedy.
It's straight up buddy comedy. Would you pay to see that?
You know what this reminds me of? And it's a comic book you introduced me to. So there is a comic book of Deadpool and Spider-Man, which you actually were the one to show me. And remember when Deadpool convinced Spider-Man to go on a double date with him?
Yeah.
I think with Domino and another female character. And basically it's just Deadpool trying to be BFFs with Spider-Man, and Spider-Man wants nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
They should play that into the movie.
Yeah.
If they
The
have
comic
that.
book, I think it was actually Deadpool was going on a double date. I want to say maybe with Death or some demon character. And then, yeah, there was another female and he needed a buddy. And it's a very funny episode. That all their issues are really actually funny. But wouldn't that be so great if Marvel's like, you know what? We're thinking outside the box. We have the action movie, sci-fi thing down. Let's go different. Let's do comedy.
That would be great. That would be great. A buddy comedy with Deadpool and Spider-Man, and like Spider-Man's the serious, like kind of nerd, and Deadpool's the, hey, let's try to get ourselves killed as hard as possible.
Yeah, and we've seen
Deadpool hitting on Aunt May.
Oh God, that'd be terrible. But we have seen superhero movies that are comedies work. I mean, Shazam, although it's a superhero comic movie, it feels very comedy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see. I would love it if they give us a Spider-Man Deadpool or Deadpool, Wolverine.
The first Deadpool was really funny.
Yeah.
And the second Deadpool was really funny. They can work that into it. It doesn't have to be pure like comic book. It could be, they don't even have to have their powers. Just those two, Tom Holland and Ryan Reynolds together in a movie where they play their characters would be great.
Disney, make it happen. We want it. Fans want it. Yep. I could see it. It's a possibility. All right, let's move on. Speaking of all that Spider-Man news, we've gotten some leaked photo sets recently revealing a few things.
Really?
I don't know if you saw any of them.
No, I haven't seen any of them.
They're circling around. They don't really give us too much other than it looks like it's taking place during the winter, possibly Christmas time. And there's a scene where they show Mary Jane, and she's actually wearing the necklace that Peter got for her in the last movie.
Okay.
But it also seems like there's some sort of rift between them. From the few moments you could see of body language in these, leaked photos, and take that for what you will, but it seems like there might be some sort of conflict. Maybe she's mad that he left and disappeared and didn't tell her, and she's a little salty about that. I don't know.
It could also just be Xenia tired from being on set for 14 hours.
And doing a million different movies and projects, by the way. But with these leaked photos, there was all these like rumors and speculation going on that I guess Tom Holland's younger brother was on set. Now to me, I was just like, oh, that's his brother's checking out his big brother at work sort of thing. But apparently people are like thinking that they might be writing his younger brother into the movie somehow, some way. Maybe it's flashbacks of a young Peter. I'd never seen Tom Holland's younger brother. I have no idea if they look alike, but what if they bring back flashbacks of young Peter? Maybe. One of the weird rumors, though, is that I guess his brother's name is Harry, and they're trying to connect Harry and his brother being on set to being Harry Osborn, perhaps, in this, which I don't think would make sense because I guess he's a few years younger. I don't know.
Yeah, because Harry Osborn's the same age as Peter.
Yeah. Well, now here that leads me into the next thing people are speculating online is that the villain of Hobgoblin will end up being Ned, his best friend in the movie.
Okay.
All right. So in the comics, I believe Ned turns into Hobgoblin. So a lot of people are hinting and speculating that Ned might be a, turn in this movie or somewhere down the road.
I mean, that'd be cool if they haven't already released information that Octavius is going to be in it. Sandman might be in it. A couple of Spider-Man might be in it. I mean, how many? Let's not make this into another Spider-Man 3 where you pack so many villains in the movie that it just becomes redundant.
What if this is the beginning of the making of the rift between them as friends? Something happens in this. And again, in the comics, I think he gets brainwashed into becoming bad. So who knows what could happen with, again, as you mentioned, all these villains that are being introduced.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, and with that said, there's a lot of just stuff in the air about who the villains are going to be, and we know we're getting some old characters back. But then there's also rumors that the Sandman is going to be coming back. You know, there's also rumors of Willem Dafoe being the one coming back to organize the Sinister Six. I don't know, so many just like rumors and speculation out there of what's happening. All we know is multiverse, many villains leading up into big shit, right?
I hope it's not many villains. I'm hoping these characters just play their normal selves in this world and they don't really have any connection to the other world. Like maybe they're just introducing like William Dafoe as Osborn, but he's not Green Goblin. And same thing with Alfred Molina, who is a teacher, but he's doesn't turn into Doc Ock. Like, you know.
One other thing that I forgot to mention, jumping back to our last conversation about Deadpool.
Whose balls did I have to fondle?
Deadpool, as well as Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, all three of them, Ryan Reynolds, Tobey, and Andrew, are going to be in Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. I think that's going to be Deadpool's introduction into the MCU is through the Doctor Strange movie, and then he's a part of this wild world.
It would be a great cameo if it's just like a sarcastic, like, hey, I'm here. Where's the X-Men? Like a reference to the other two movies, but he's gone in a second.
Yeah.
I'm feeling we're going to be seeing a rift in that movie, like a cosmic rift, and we'll be getting quick visions of other realities.
Yeah.
And that's how these characters, they're not going to be having like serious speaking parts. It'll be like, it'll be like
I understand what
Professor
you're
X
saying.
in Deadpool 1.
Yeah.
Where
It's
like
going to be
the-
a moment where you're seeing it from like a outside perspective, and
Yeah.
that may be all that it is.
Mhm.
But it might lead to something bigger down the line.
It could.
But speaking on Spider-Man and his villains, there's some Sony news updates, and apparently Morbius is being pushed back
Again.
till next year. This time next year, in fact. So I'm worried about that because I'm thinking, is that going to push back Venom? Is that going to push back Spider-Man 3? If Spider-Man 3 takes place during Christmas and they wanted to release it during December, are they still going to be able to do that now? I don't know.
This upsets me not only because we don't know the state of the other movies, but they've basically pushed back all of their movies, like Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I've wanted to badly see for such a long time.
So disappointing.
Is not being released in June. It's in November, and we should have gotten it last March. Uncharted movie is being moved to November, and a correction from last episode, the Uncharted movie has finished filming. It's in post-production and is actually starring Tom Holland. He's playing the main character.
Nice. Well, I don't know, man. At least we have the MCU series, and that will keep us going for a couple months, you know?
Yeah, thank God for Disney Plus.
You know, between WandaVision, we got at least, 4 more episodes of that. Then we're going to have Falcon Winter Soldier, hopefully Loki later this year. So even if all these movies get pushed back, I feel like we'll have a little bit of content in the in-between at least, right?
I agree.
All right, let's move on. DC news. Let's talk DC animated. If you don't know by now, HBO Max has all the DC animated stuff that you could want. It has some things that we talked about in previous episodes, A Death in the Family. It has a bunch of the different Batman, what are these, like stories or not? I don't want to say.
Yeah, they have Year One. They have The Dark Knight.
But then they have like
animated.
what about these like Ninja Batman ones and things like that?
Yeah, well, they have alternate reality.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I was looking for. So anyway, HBO Max,
Samurai.
a whole bunch of this content. And recently, both of us heard some news that our ears perked up. We got
Ooh.
so excited.
Yeah,
Say it,
they're
Ben.
revamping Batman the animated series, a new type of series in development.
So they're giving us new episodes.
I don't know. I kind of hope so.
I think
kinda
it
hope
is.
It's like Clone
I'm
Wars
pretty
on
sure.
Disney Plus.
I'm pretty
where-
sure it's new episodes because they already have, which is awesome, by the way. You can go back and watch all the old Batman animated, which I've been doing that. That's kind of my new end of night. I watched a couple episodes of that.
I watched Mask of the Phantasm the other night.
Once again on HBO Max. Listen, they don't pay
Yeah.
us for this.
But I hope it's new episodes, and I hope they stick with the animation style. I don't want this to be where they change up the animation style to be more modern or, kind of anime style where they it has to appease to a certain crowd. Listen, we're 80s and 90s babies. We grew up watching this on Saturday mornings. Give it to us. It's meant for us. It's meant for the 30-year-olds. 19-year-olds aren't going to watch this.
Wasn't this on after school?
You know what? You're right. I think we discussed this last time. I think it was Thursday after school on Thursdays.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you're right.
it's
All
just
right,
great.
my fault.
Regardless, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about some other cool, fun DC news. So do you watch the show Titans at all?
No, I don't.
It's actually pretty cool. First season was awesome. The way season 1 ends, it's so much fun. I don't want to spoil it for you, but you get to see a character do something that you've never seen before, really. Kind of, sort of, maybe in one movie, but a different version of a character do some wild stuff, and you're like, oh, this is awesome. And I don't want to spoil what ends up happening, but just seeing that character in that moment, doing the things that they're doing, you're like, oh, this is like a dream almost. Like,
that's
it's
cool.
such a really fun moment. And that's how they kind of end the season, on this super cool high note. Now, to be honest with you, I was a little touch and go with season 2. There were some cool moments. It did get better. But what's awesome is the new season is going to be introducing a whole bunch of cool characters. Now, if I say the name to you, Dr. Jonathan Crane, do you know who that is?
Scarecrow.
Boom. They're introducing the Scarecrow character, but I think, again, first as Dr. Jonathan Crane, and eventually he'll turn into this. They're also introducing Barbara Gordon.
Oh, okay. Batgirl.
Yep. And then finally, they've already had the Jason Todd character in the show, but it's rumored that he's coming in season 3 as
Red Hood?
the Red Hood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is pretty exciting. This is a cool little lineup of villains for this show. Again, I want you to watch season 1, because by the time you get to that final episode, there's going to be season 3 coming out.
Can I bring up something funny actually about
Sure.
Titans? I remember our episode 1, which was 2 years ago? Like, we were discussing how Titans was coming out, and we were discussing about how there was backlash over how the characters looked, and we weren't sure if it was going to do well. And now they're in season 3, and they're introducing a whole array of DC lore characters. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of doing what you really wish that show Gotham did, like introduce characters, but like in a fun way that's exciting to the audience. Whereas Gotham kind of really fell flat on a lot of their characters, I thought.
I feel like they were held creatively. They weren't given the opportunity to expand.
All right, let's talk a little CWDC news real quick. Now, we have good news and bad news. Ben, which would you prefer?
Give me the bad news so I leave on a high note.
Okay, well, depending on your take on this could just be bad news, okay?
Oh, thanks, man.
So,
okay.
All right, the bad news, I guess, is CW's The Flash pushed back its season 7 premiere to March 2nd. So speaking of things being pushed back, it's happening in TV now too. We're not going to be getting The Flash when we were supposed to be getting it, which was, I think, like this week, actually.
Wait, when is it being pushed back?
March 2nd, which is only like, an extra month away, month and a half away. Not even.
Huh.
What is it, 5 weeks? Whatever. Right now, The Flash is the CW's longest running show, being that Arrow's done with. But they're not stopping here, certainly with DC content. We've mentioned in a few of the other episodes that they are introducing new CW shows. And here's where I don't know if you want this to be good news or bad news, comes in. The show Superman and Lois, it's going to be premiering February 23rd on the CW. Good news, Ben. It's getting an extra 30 minutes. A 2-hour premiere episode.
I don't even think that's good news or bad news. That's like vanilla news.
Ready
it's
for
like
this?
Unflavored news.
So again, this is going to be telling the story of Superman and Lois Lane, and they're going to be raising 2 teenage boys. Now, this show exists in the same canon as the Arrowverse, or the Berlantiverse, whatever you want to call it, and we're getting 13 episodes of this. And again, this is coming out February 23rd on the CW. Now, what do you have to say?
I say if all of a sudden one of the boys end up turning like to be Brightburn, I'll watch it.
Okay.
Other than that, I don't know. I'm sorry. This storyline of like Superman and Lois behind the scenes in their farm life, raising children, just doesn't really interest me.
Now check this out. That is literally how I felt, what I thought, and what I think most people feel and think. But right now, I'm gonna have us stop down the show. I'm gonna have Ben watch this trailer and then give his reaction. So stay tuned.
A few moments later.
Okay, Ben, that was the trailer for Superman and Lois. Now, what do you think?
Okay, I have to say the trailer looks cool, but then again, New Mutants trailer looked cool too.
Fair enough.
I don't understand what's going on with the world. I understand that the idea that you have to have this handsome, rugged looking guy, but Superman in these shows seems to get skinnier and skinnier. Like this guy looks like he should be like on the model of GQ and like, you know, an Uncle Jesse lookalike instead of, you know, the beefy looking super. I mean, it could be good.
All
It
right,
does
but
look good.
overall, though, from what your reaction was prior to seeing that, it's a totally different tone than what you thought it might have been, right?
When I first heard the show, I keep thinking of Lois and Clark.
Yeah. Now, to me, I had that same kind of reaction, like, oh, disgusting. I don't want anything to do with this. After I watched the trailer, though, I was like, you know what? This could be interesting. It seems like they're dealing with a lot of drama in the show, not just in the world of Superman, but in the world of them hiding from their children, apparently, that he's been Superman and them finding out. And then what happens if we find out these kids also have abilities, which I think that's what it's leading to.
I guess that could be interesting. I mean, how many episodes can you squeeze out of the concept that we gotta
13
hide our
apparently. 13 episodes for the first season
I
apparently.
mean, is it how much longer is it going to be until it turns into a sitcom? Where it's like, Dad had to pick up this couch. Well, turn your head around. Like, you know,
We'll see.
it looks good. The cinematography looks good. The color spectrum looks good. It has a darker tone. The actors, you know, I still think Superman looks a bit too skinny for my taste, but, you know, fine. All right. I give you that. The trailer makes it look a lot more appealing than I assume.
All right, judge for yourself. Go check it out on
Yeah.
YouTube now. All right, moving on. Let's talk some Star Wars news. Ben, I know you have a lot to chat about. What do you got for us?
So, the first High Republic book got released. If anyone's not aware that Disney is releasing and LucasArts is releasing all these comics, kids books, adult books, based upon the High Republic, which happens between 300 BBY before the Battle of Yavin in episode 1 and 82 BBY, which is basically 50 years prior to Phantom Menace. Now, in connection with these novels and comic books, they've been releasing YouTube videos explaining some of the back lore of the characters, some of the younger Jedi.
Yeah.
And the villains, the Nile, which is this terrorist organization trying to take advantage of this event that happens in the book. Apparently, it's called the Great Disaster. A ship explodes in hyperspace and threatens to destroy some planets. And it's basically trying to go beyond the Skywalker saga. Now, there are rumors that the end of the novel series will lead to about 80 BBY or 70 BBY. 90 BBY and lead into the Acolyte show, which will delve into maybe the Sith and hopefully what I would like to see is maybe Palpatine introduced as a young man.
Oh, okay, cool.
So that's what the rumors are. But I bought this book. The first book is called Light of the Jedi. The second book comes out in June, called The Rising Storm. The Nile look cool. You know, I'm pretty interested in it. And I mean, I'm gonna start it right after I finish reading Revenge of the Sith. I got about 50 more pages left, and then.
All right, sounds interesting.
And then also to go into some other rumors about Star Wars, there have been a lot of chatter online about Mara Jade introduced. Now it's weird though that people are talking about Mara Jade because Mara Jade has deep roots in the extended universe. In the extended universe, the Emperor has an assassin called the Emperor's Hand, and it's this female, and she's sent out to kill Luke Skywalker. And they battle and he defeats her, but he ends up turning her away from the dark side. She's almost like Asajj Ventress before Sasha Ventress was out of her character, and then they get married and have kids. So
Does she call him Tiger?
yeah, I hope so. That's
Sounds like Mary Jane.
Now,
that's
do
why.
you think he ever uses his metallic hand on her?
Oh, jeez.
Okay, we're getting into darker regions, right?
Yeah, that's
But,
the dark side.
There are some rumors that she's going to be in it. Now, I thought she was going to be in the Rise of Skywalker. That character that was familiar with Poe Dameron, the actress from The Americans.
I remember,
I
yeah.
thought she was supposed to be Mara Jade. I thought that they were going to introduce her as it, but Disney's proven that, oh, you want this as fans? Sorry, we're going to do exactly opposite.
Yeah, speaking of that, just kind of off topic but on topic. There was this meme of Finn, and I was in such agreement with this. The first The Force Awakens, they sold that movie to us as a stormtrooper
Turning into a Jedi.
who leaves being on the side of evil to join the Jedi. And then they never did anything really with that angle moving forward.
John Boyega was actually very vocal recently about
Yeah.
this. Apparently, he was promised a larger part, and his character was rewritten in episode 8 and episode 9.
Sorry, that random thought just popped into my head,
No,
and that just
because-
pisses me off. Where like they have these moments to do the what fans want, and then they kind of like leave
Because
them there.
they hinted also that he was supposed to be the love interest of Rey.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And then all of a sudden we got this weird cousin
Brother-
relationship
Cousin thing, yeah.
Yeah, between
Ugh.
Ben and Ray, that it was just I don't think had a clear idea of what they did. Kathleen Kennedy obviously is out of her mind, and J.J. Abrams is just he's like, I'm just gonna make a movie. And
Yeah,
you're
for
gonna deal with
me,
that.
The Last Jedi and what's it?
Return
Re-
to
Rise of Skywalker.
Skywalker.
Those left such a bitter taste in my mouth
Yeah,
with the Star
well-
Wars thing, but you know what helped it? The Mandalorian
Yes,
series
of course.
totally revived it for me. But anyway, I digress.
But there's also very, very good news. If you're a Star Wars fan and a video game Star Wars fan, one thing that Star Wars fans have griped about for years, even before the new trilogy, was EA's control of the Star Wars games.
Battlefront and everything
Well,
like that.
so Battlefront 2 was released, but there was so much loot boxes and payment options in it that it was like you had to spend $100 just to make a game playable or even to enjoy the game. Then they changed it where there wasn't as much loot boxing. I believe that government got in control, or there was like a larger board that said you can't make people pay for
Some commission came in and
Yeah, like because it was basically said you can't make people pay $60 for a game and then expect them to pay $60 more for a game in order to make it playable. So there have been calls for many, many years for EA to lose their entitlement to the Star Wars games. There's talks that Ubisoft is in works with LucasArts, and they're going to be developing an open world Star Wars platform game.
oh, dope.
More story driven. No, I can't hate on EA myself. I did enjoy Battlefront 2. I got it after the loot box decision was made. I liked the newest game, Fallen Order. I actually still play it often. I thought that the kind of God of War format really worked well for it, but an open world platform, kind of like Fallout, would be a lot of fun, where you progress and you choose the character. And I think it's about time that, the franchise is open to other game developers. Hopefully this isn't something where they try to rush a game out and make it, just here, give us a broken game just to appease us.
Yeah, aka Avengers game.
Yeah. Or Cyberpunk 2077. That was supposed to be the biggest hype game of the year and ended up the biggest dud.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that topic, let's talk some other news. I found this weird and interesting and kind of in this realm, sort of, kind of. They're making an Indiana Jones video game,
I heard this too.
and they're
That's-
making another Indiana Jones movie.
Okay, the Indiana Jones movie to me is redundant at how are you gonna have Harrison Ford? He's gotta be in his 70s, right?
Yeah.
come back. And are they going to be bring Shia LaBeouf
I
back?
hope not.
Because apparently he's been blacklisted. So how are you going to explain his son's not in? It's just
Yeah. Maybe they'll just retcon the third one.
the third one. You mean the fourth one?
The fourth one. Whatever.
That would be cool if they retcon the fourth one. I can go with that. I mean, I would say have an Indiana Jones prequel, but they kind of already did that in The Last Crusade. I don't know if you remember, River Phoenix played him as a young man. And then,
I didn't remember that. No.
yeah, River Phoenix played young Indiana Jones. And then, Sean Connery was his dad in it. And it was, but I think an Indiana Jones game would be awesome.
Yeah, no, that would be a lot of fun if it's like Uncharted,
Tomb Raider.
Tomb Raider type of play. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be sick. If you got to escape a giant rolling boulder, right? You have to have
references
that.
to some of the older movies. Yeah, have like
You have to shoot a
moment-
Nazi.
Oh, I'm always up for shooting Nazis in video games.
In other related news, what was this Comic-Con cruise?
I heard that Image Comics and Skybound Comics are in development to make a Comic-Con cruise in 2022.
I'm into it. There's a lot of charter cruises that go out, of theme ones.
Dude, there's a wrestling cruise.
I've DJ'd on some of these cruises. I've DJ'd on a swingers cruise once, bro. It's wild. I've DJ'd on a reggae festival
I hope
cruise.
you took a deep shower after that.
Well, they give
swinging
you
cruise.
shots of penicillin on the way in and out.
Oh, okay,
So,
that sounds good.
no, but in all reality, in all seriousness, rather, I'm down for it. I mean, Comic-Con at sea, like a couple days cruise of a bunch of other nerds, and whoever they'll have like appearances by people and things like that. Sure, why not? I mean, it's another way to make a buck.
I actually wanted to talk to you about this because if it's mid 2022 and we both have our vaccine by then and we're
Well, I'm sure
maybe you and I can cruise on that. We'll go together. We'll
Yeah.
take some pictures. We'll try to do a live video feed from the cruise line.
There you go.
I think that would be fun.
Let's talk some other superhero movies real quick that are on Netflix. So, being that some of these other movies that we wanted coming out this year may be getting pushed back and delayed and all that, there's a couple that I found recently on Netflix that I wasn't too aware of until recently. But maybe on a cold night in the winter, you pop one of these on. But Pedro Pascal's in one. It's called We Can Be Heroes.
Oh, cool.
Jamie Foxx is in one called Project Power.
Now I have heard that. My brother's fiance said she absolutely loved it.
And then coming spring of this year, we got a movie with Melissa McCartney and Octavia Spencer, Thunder Force. I think it's going to be like a comedy / superhero movie. So again, going back to what we were talking about before, it's kind of fun to have these different genre themed superhero movies that aren't necessarily just superhero focused.
Hey, anything with Melissa McCarthy, I'm up for. She's
So-
hilarious.
Anyway, it's just kind of cool to know that there's other content other than the typical Marvel, DC, fanboy stuff that we love.
Yeah.
But some other cool series updates and maybe something coming in the works is HBO Max is working on a Harry Potter series. According to Variety.com, an early Harry Potter series is in development for HBO Max. No actors or writers are attached to the project yet, and no details on where it's going to be in the timeline of the Harry Potter story. But I'm for it. I hope
I
hope it's better than Fantastic Beasts stuff, though, because I wasn't really into those
I
movies.
like the Fantastic Beasts. I
Yeah.
thought that they were fun to watch. The play, the 2-part play, I heard
The
was
Cursed
really
Child?
good. The
I
Cursed
didn't see
Child, I
that.
heard was really
Nice.
good. I would love. I mean, it would be great if it was a prequel.
That's what I'm hoping for, and I'm kind of hoping it's, there was this meme going around of Adam Driver as a
As
young
Snape?
Snape, and if it's a prequel of Snape as a Death Eater but working secretly for Dumbledore,
That would be fantastic.
that would be a sick
Yeah.
sick TV series. That'd
That
be
would
dope.
be great.
I think a lot of fans would love that. Even if they don't get Adam Driver, I mean, that was just one fan.
Get Adam Driver as Snape and maybe Jude Law as like Dumbledore.
Yeah, or just whatever. Give me that concept is what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and I'm in for it for sure.
To go into that concept, Amazon is developing a pre-Fellowship of the Rings Lord of the Rings show.
Oh, dope.
For those who don't know, the Silmarillion, of course, The Hobbit comes before Lord of the Rings, but a lot of people have always asked about where did Sauron come from?
Yeah.
And the Silmarillion is a novel that explains that, about the creation of Middle Earth, and it basically goes over the first through third age. So there are discussions that the show goes into the second age, where basically Sauron makes the 9 rings that he basically no, there's more than 9 rings. Makes the 14 rings he gives to the men, the elves, and the dwarves, and like pre the one ring, like before he forges that.
All right. Well, thanks for that tidbit, Stephen Colbert.
Yo, don't like that. I don't even have half the knowledge or quarters of knowledge that man has.
All right, let's move on. I know you really wanted to talk about this.
Yeah,
I'm excited to hear about it. What do you got on the Ninja Turtles front?
So I recently went into a local comic book store near me, and I don't know, it's very different than Midtown Comics. So we've been into modern day comic book stores, a lot of
Pop
Funkos, statues,
things that aren't comics,
things that are comic related but not our comics. And this store was straight up comic book store,
wall to wall
comics, boxes full of
Nice.
them. Like, of course, they had the wall of the new issues, and I found The Last Ronin, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's still written by Kevin Eastman, who was one of the first writers of it. If anyone's watched that show, The Toys That Made Us on Netflix, he explains that one of his stipulations for when he sold off the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to whatever company, the rights, that he still owns the right to write comic books.
Nice.
And in this one, 3 of the Ninja Turtles are dead, and there's one left. And basically, he's on a vengeance mission. At the beginning of the comic, he enters into a very dystopic-looking, futuristic New York City, where there's sludge going around the river. And apparently, he's trying to hunt the Shredder's grandson, who was responsible for killing the 3 other turtles, who their ghosts kind of haunt him. I don't think they're actually there. I think it's more in his head. Now, throughout the first comic, most of it, you don't know who it is. Now, at first, when I started reading it, I figured it was Raphael, like with the attitude, like the grit, like the anger. And then at the end, he gets beaten up by these mousers. He's saved by this young thug named Jones, who automatically made me think of Casey Jones. And he wakes up in this hospital bed, but maybe it's an underground hospital. And there, wearing a yellow jumpsuit, grizzled and older looking, is April O'Neil, and she immediately recognizes him as Michelangelo.
Oh, a fellow chucker, eh?
And I thought that was a great story arc, like the fun-loving one. Witness his brothers die, his father died, and
Let me ask you: Is this is new or this has been out?
It came out in December. I think the first.
Why is this not the first time I'm hearing of this Michelangelo Ronin thing, though?
Because it was spoiled online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. People love spoilers.
And let me ask: so is Ronin just a character in some storyline that this person who was once good turns vigilante almost?
Well, the last Ronin is a reference to the 47 Ronin.
Well, okay, so what is that? Because I'm trying to because Ronin was also Hawkeye.
Yeah.
And,
so the 47 Ronin is an old Japanese tale about these 47 followers of a leader, and a rival kills their leader, and he immediately expects vengeance. And I'm really paraphrasing because the story goes much detail. He really expects these guys to come and gather revenge, but they don't. Some of them even go into alcoholism. Some leave their wives. Some they disperse. And over the years, they wait until he lets his guard down. I think it takes almost 10 years. And once they let the guard down, the 47 Ronin got back together and they murdered their leader's killer.
Nice.
And it's basically a story of that vengeance is a dish best served cold.
Cool. So did they got more issues coming out? When?
Issue 2 comes out February 15th. It's apparently going to be a 5 series.
Nice.
issue.
All right, cool. So maybe we'll keep checking in on this as we go on.
I think this is something I'm going to follow. I'm definitely going to go back to that comic book store because it reminded me. I mean, they have the table set up in the back for the Magic the Gathering games, in Dungeons and Dragons games, they have late at night. It was
It's one of those. Yeah.
It gave me a nice nostalgic feeling walking in there.
Where the real nerds hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think I'm a nerd, and then you go into one of those comic book shops and you go to the back with the table and those games. I have no idea what they're playing with those games. Anyway, I digress once again. All right, before we move into the next part of the show, we have a quick commercial break.
Do you like free stuff? Are you also huge fans of Marvel, DC, Star Wars, and other pop culture favorites? Then join us on the Infinite Universe podcast, where we talk the latest movies, television, theories, and spoilers. Going on right now, we have a giveaway just for our YouTube subscribers. With the start of Marvel's Phase 4 this year and the announcement of shows like Secret Invasion and the inevitable inclusion of Marvel's first family, the Fantastic Four, we're going to be giving away a Pop Funko of the fan favorite villain, Super Skrull. For a chance to win a free Pop Funko figure, all you need to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, comment, and share our videos, and you're automatically entered into the giveaway. A winner will be chosen at random and announced later this year in a future video, so stay tuned. We got more giveaways throughout the upcoming months, so make sure to hit that notification button now. Be sure to check out all the other content available on the YouTube page, including the latest podcast episode and fan fiction stories. Also available on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and many others. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter.
And we're back. Now the part of the show we've all been waiting for. We recently got new episodes of WandaVision. All right, Ben, you ready to get into this? It's been a couple weeks since our last recording, and since then, we've had 2 episodes of what's one of our favorite new shows, WandaVision. And I must say, before we even talk about the episode, just every time I turn on Disney Plus and go over to the Marvel section, and I start to hear this music build in the background, I just get so excited every time.
Goosebumps.
It's like I'm opening up a present on Christmas morning every single time. Just this excitement of every week we have a new piece of Marvel content. It feels like almost a new movie every week that you're excited about. The hype has not died down for me at all with this show.
I completely agree. I think the show keeps going above my expectations. Every time I think I know where the show is going, I'm completely wrong, as we'll discuss with episode 4. But yeah, I do think though, I watched some message boards, people on my Facebook group who have been watching it. I think it is confusing people who are unfamiliar with the content, but to us, it's exactly what we were looking for.
Well, for me, I'm kind of okay with all the confusion.
Yeah,
for me, it's more mystery. You know what I mean? I don't like it when it's just simple and to the point. I kind of like this each week. The internet runs wild with different theories and predictions. It's so much fun. I mean, I much rather it this way for some reason in this context, maybe just with this kind of show, that they're giving it to us week by week. Because I think if they gave it to us all at once, we wouldn't really appreciate all these episodes as we do right now.
No, you're absolutely right. It needs to be appreciated week by week and not in a straightforward binge worthy. I mean, because I would have been finished with it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. But with that said, what I do plan on doing is after all this is done is maybe sitting down and binging it all the way through. Because once you know what happens, there's some scenes that play out a lot differently.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we just did that. We went back and watched 2 episodes right before episode 4.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. Episode 3, now in color, had a very Partridge Family, Brady Bunch vibe to it. Really retro feeling with all the colors and the clothing. Once again, the actors are fantastic. For me, Elizabeth Olsen just steals the show. Every scene, she's so funny, sweet, mysterious, and then vicious all at the same time.
Well, I think the actor who plays Vision, Paul Bettany, he actually, to me, was one of my favorite in this episode. His comedic appearance is very, like in the opening segment when he's trying to build the swing set and he puts it together and it just falls apart and he gives that womp womp type look. Yeah, I thought he was really the dad whose wife is going to be giving birth and he has no idea what to do and he's lost in the woods and he's asking stupid questions of the doctor.
And the comedy's still hitting home. It's still good for me. It's funny, it's quirky, corny at times, but in a very like
but that's true to
the style of
the
generation, the time and all that. But things are definitely starting to get strange in Wandaland, right? We have the doctor who starts mentioning, Bermuda. The doctor comes over. We see Wanda's pregnant and everything. We see Vision outside talking to Herb. And at first he's cutting the hedges. And then all of a sudden he's cutting the brick wall. And then, we see Wanda just every moment becoming more and more pregnant. So things are starting to get a little freaky in this reality that we're watching.
The fracture of whatever illusion we're watching is gradually breaking apart. And we're seeing that more and more. Like in the first episode, it was only one moment. In the second episode, maybe 2 with the plane. And now with this one, it's occurring much more. And we saw that, like, he goes, Herb, I think you took a little bit off the top much. And the guy, just gives this weird smile. Like, yeah. And, he's not even paying attention to the act. He's more busy looking at Vision.
Yeah. And then I did mention the doctor mentioning Bermuda because, it's this illusional place of illusion, the Bermuda Triangle. It's kind of like this fantasy place. And I like that subtle hint at that's where he's going to escape this reality. Let's talk about just though kind of how this episode starts building. Wanda keeps getting more pregnant. She starts having contractions. And then things start going crazy in the home. Lights are flickering. All the other appliances are going nuts. And then later says, this was key to me, actually. She says, who knows what will happen when the real thing starts? And I feel like this is some major foreshadowing like a motherfucker, man. Because her words are, who knows what will happen when the real thing starts? So right now she's having contractions and her body's bugging out, her mind's bugging out, whatever it is, right? The reality around her starts bugging out.
Will we see that when the baby first kicks and she puts up the mobile of the butterflies, and with the first kick, all of a sudden the butterflies burst into being real?
Yeah, and what I'm saying is this is just like the tip of the iceberg of what's going to happen when the real thing happens, so to speak. I don't know. It's kind of cool. Like each episode, I'm like, yo, they're hinting at this is going to get
foreshadowing.
This is going to get worse. This is just the beginning. This is just. And then she actually says, "Do you think they'll know it's my fault?" And I feel like this was kind of a moment again where she's her subconscious almost is breaking out of, this false fantasy that's built around her.
I completely agree. I think that we're gradually seeing the world that is built up around her and Vision kind of crack under pressure. And Wanda, she looks like she's trying to keep it together in her head. But there are moments later in the episode, and we'll talk about that, where you can see that, you can't keep it together. Especially her mental fitness is actually kind of breaking under the weight of this false reality.
Yeah, and the people of Westview are definitely on the verge of discovering their secret. And in fact, that's what I think Vision says, or someone says at one point, the people of Westview are on the verge of discovering our secret. And then Vision, that's right when he starts to question things. And this is, again, in that moment in that episode, particularly where it starts to get really fun, because Vision starts questioning things, right? And then he's starting to realize that this reality around him isn't quite right, and he can't put his finger on it. But like little by little, as you see like the gears turning in his head, he starts like figuring out. And then that's when we get this awesome episode when the show skips. And then like that moment was just erased and recorded over for a new scene. It rewinds backwards, and that whole little moment doesn't happen. That's again Wanda in control of the moment. And
well, we don't even know at that moment if it's Wanda in control of the moment. We know that someone did not want that
Very
conversation
true.
to occur.
yeah,
And Vision almost had that instant in the last episode where he kind of was looking at Wanda and then it kind of flipped back. And in this one, he says to her, you know, we can go anywhere. And she says, why? This is our home.
well, what's fun about this is that it seems like not only for the people watching at home, this mystery is like revealing itself little by little. To some of the characters that's happening too.
Yeah.
And then they get like thrown backwards, and then they're kind of like those moments are like kind of forgot about.
They're put back into their place.
Yeah, it's really fun actually. I think
Yeah, me too.
it's just fun watching this like open up little by little, and
Which
eventually it's going to just crash and burn, right?
I guess that could be what's confusing for viewers who don't really understand the characters. And again, like you mentioned, there are animated shorts that you can watch before to kind of go deeper, because if you're watching the show and you don't know the context of the characters in it and the history from what happened before, or even have an understanding of what Wanda's powers are and the history with Vision, it would be confusing where all of a sudden, like Vision says that and it goes like, like bleep, nothing happened. So I mean,
well, with that, if you're new to watching this show and confused, don't worry, because
we're just as confused.
we're
as you
just
are.
as confused, and we've watched every single Marvel
But
movie.
I think to us it means more because the confusion is excitement. Because
Yeah.
we understand that the confusion will eventually be explained.
And with that said, even in Avengers Age of Ultron, when they introduce Scarlet Witch and they kind of try to describe her power, they actually can't put it into context. And he's like, and they, who was it? Agent, the girl from How I Met Your Mother says, and she does freaky shit, something like that.
She goes, he's got hypermetabolic rate and she can control psychoanalyze inhibitors in the brain. And he looks at her and goes, what? And she goes, he's fast, she's freaky. Like basically she's freaky.
Yeah. And that's basically how to sum it up. Freaky with a whole lot of powers. And she doesn't even quite know her ability at this point. So, again, little by little, it's all unraveling. And then we get another commercial, this time Hydra Soak. What'd you think of this commercial?
It was very different than the last one. So the last one was a watch based upon the character from Hydra. We got the picture, but this one didn't even have the Hydra symbol in it. It was just Hydra Soak.
Yeah, and it was where your problems float away when you want to get away, but don't want to go anywhere.
It's a contradictory statement.
Well, and it's also Wanda's getting away, right? Or maybe if it's true that she's creating this reality for herself, she's not anywhere, but she's somewhere, right?
She's somewhere else, but she's still there. Now, did you recognize the woman in the commercial? Because I didn't.
No.
And there are theories that the woman in the commercial has an important,
What are the theories?
that she's a future character that may be introduced and, is secretly working with maybe the big bad. That's like what some people have been saying on the internet, that all the actors, quote unquote, in the commercials do have their own part. And just because they're not in the main show, they will be eventually reintroduced into the series.
Oh, no.
Like we've talked about in the past, that this show is supposedly a precursor to Doctor Strange, right? So maybe in the Doctor Strange movie, we will be seeing these characters again in the main movies.
And I like how the commercial ends. It says, "Find the goddess within," and I'm just like, "Oh crap! This is like just giving me such Dark Phoenix vibes." Where it's like, you don't want her to find that goddess within, because what that means for everyone else is trouble, right?
Well, I mean, think about what we've discussed in the past. Like you have someone like Wanda who basically has the power of an Infinity Stone.
Yeah.
and she's lost her brother. She's lost the love of her life. A bunch of friends. The Avengers have disbanded. You know, she's been through a lot of traumatic stress in the past 10 years. And with someone who can basically create her own reality, what would happen if she had a mental breakdown?
And that's kind of what we're seeing, right?
That's what some of the thoughts are.
And these episodes also focus a lot on the Geraldine character. Now, we know her name, Monica Rambeau. We find out that eventually in the episode that she's working for Sword. Now, in the comics, she becomes Captain Marvel at one point. And remember, she was the young girl in the Captain Marvel movie. Her mother was Captain Marvel's like best
Photon.
friend. And now flash forward all these years, she's working for Sword and she's mixed up in this WandaVerse that we're seeing, right?
And we don't know in this episode how she got there. But again, she's responsible for another break in the reality of Wanda.
Yep. I like the scene where she's over Wanda's house, right? And basically Wanda's having contractions, right? So the baby's kicking. So her powers are like out of control.
A stork appears out of nowhere.
Yeah. Now we get the stork running through the home, and it seems like she almost can't control the stork, right?
No.
And there's a lot of people online that have speculations about this stork, and this is some fun convo because this is kind of where our imaginations could run wild, and certainly people online are just talking all this crazy stuff. Now, you know, the fairy tale that you tell your kids how babies are born is that a stork brings the babies, right? Well, this could be really hinting at a potential villain for the series or a big bad later on down the road. A lot of people are hinting that this stork is actually the devil, Mephisto. And why they say that is there's a couple little Easter eggs or maybe clues, and maybe people are just really overanalyzing this, but also Marvel doesn't do anything.
We're comic book nerds. Of course, that's what
and
we
Marvel doesn't do anything just for coincidence
No.
purposes. So with that said, check this out. When that's, again, Wanda can't really seem to control it. She tries to use her magic to shoo it away. When she does, it turns into a puff of smoke, a red smoke, but it's still there. Now, the thing about that red smoke is a lot of people saying that's not like the red magic that Wanda uses because it looks totally different. In fact, it looks like a whole different sort of ability or power almost. Someone that can maybe turn into things, shapeshift into things, whatever, someone else with magic abilities, so on and so forth. So that's kind of like the first little clue that like, yo, something's not right about that stork. What are they hinting at? Did you want to say something?
I did like, though, during that whole segment, though, I thought it went back to like that 70s era sitcom.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's at that point, what, 7-8 months pregnant, even though she's only been, pregnant for a couple hours, and she's trying to hide from Monica Geraldine that she's pregnant, and she's trying to hide her power. So like throughout the whole thing, she's like, she's like holding a pot in front of her, like
the fruit bowl in front of her
yeah,
stomach.
she's trying to make the stork disappear and then direct Geraldine's attention away from the stork. And it was very much like a sitcom where it's like in real life, she would have noticed that thing automatically. And in television, we kind of break the rules of reality where people aren't as observant as they should be.
Now, another thing people online picked up on is that when the stork is grabbing at Geraldine's pants, that the image is that of a fish, and the symbol of a fish in what religion is Jesus, Christianity, right?
Okay.
So the devil snapping at God symbol, you know what I mean? A godly symbol. And maybe people are reaching, but at the same time, why does this woman have fish on her, Jesus fish looking type fish on her pants?
If it is revealed later on that the stork was Mephisto and we see like his cloud of smoke, that would be fantastic subtext they wrote into it.
Well, and the reason
right now we don't know,
and the reason why we mention all this and people are thinking that is because in the comic books, Mephisto was directly linked to
her children,
the children of Wanda. What's interesting about all this Mephisto stuff is that we do know that we're getting Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, and we do know that we're getting Spider-Man 3, And it just so happens that he's also villains in all three of these main characters' storylines in the comics. So how dope would that be if somehow, some way, all three of these are connected?
He's connected to one of the big bads that's going to happen in all the movies.
So now Wanda's starting to have the baby in the episode, and she says to Geraldine, I can't do this. And again, I mentioned it before, but I feel like this is a moment where like her subconscious might be speaking through the fantasy a little bit. And she ends up having a kid. And in fact, she ends up having twins, Billy and Tommy. And as you remember in the episode prior to that, they were kind of arguing over what the name of the child should be.
No, that was that episode.
Oh, that was that same episode. In the beginning, they were arguing over the name of the child. Now, in the comics, if you read, you know that these two characters end up becoming Wiccan and Speed, the children,
the Avengers,
the children of Vision and Scarlet Witch,
who actually, to go back to the Mephisto, end up being soul shards of Mephisto, and Mephisto absorbs them back in, which then ignites Scarlet Witch to create the alternate reality, which starts off the House of M series.
Now, that's kind of what this all seems like it's leading into, right? Mephisto.
I'm sure they'll be doing their own version of it with interpreting. This is a discussion we've
But I feel like
before.
it's like this. It's going to be Mephisto does something, her kids are going to be taken away from her. It's going to be the catalyst of her creating the multiverse,
which she could end up being the villain.
That's what I was going to say. I think that there's strong possibility that she's the villain of Doctor Strange, and he has to try to like
bring her back,
fix this mess.
Yeah.
And then from there, there's other villains. I mean, a lot of people are saying Nightmare.
Maybe he's pulling the strings behind her. He's kind of allowing her to control this world around her and keeping her in a great dreamlike phase. But again, this is just conjecture. We don't know. I mean, a lot of my theories from the last episode were shown to be completely wrong, which I'm fine with. But we're comic book nerds. We like to theorize and make predictions that will ultimately not come true, but it's fun and it makes us happy.
Now, this is what I really loved about the episode, though. When we see the turn, this is what was really fun. When the doctor leaves from delivering the babies, this is when the tone of like the episode really starts to change. He mentions again, I don't think I'll get away after all. Small towns are hard to escape. And this is in reference to him taking that trip to Bermuda, right?
Yeah, that he can't leave.
Escape. He can't leave. I think, again, this is everyone in that town. It kind of seems like people aren't there willingly almost. He wants to leave, but he can't leave.
Well, remember with the whole conversation while Vision walks the doctor out and he's talking to Herb and Agnes, and that basically Agnes goes, is Geraldine in there? And Vision goes, yes. And Agnes goes, well, she's not one of us.
So Vision actually gives like the doctor this really confused look when he makes that comment about it being hard to escape and everything. And this is when we see Herb and Agnes acting all strangely next door, right?
Well, you hear them talking and you can hear Agnes whisper to Herb she's inside with her.
Yeah, they're acting really suspect during this scene. And again, another reason why I love the mystery of the show is that we don't know who's good or bad in this, because this scene, they're acting super sketchy and you're not quite sure what's going on, but you don't know if they're on the good side or the bad side.
You also
right?
don't know who's aware of their surroundings or not.
Yeah.
Because at that point, Vision Agnes says to Vision, is Geraldine in there with Wanda? And Vision says yes. And Agnes goes, well, you got to watch out for her. She's not one of us.
Yeah,
it's almost like Agnes is aware, like that she's not supposed to be there.
It almost seems to me that Herb and Agnes seem to be a little scared by Geraldine, or they just don't want her around. Clearly, one or the other. I like it, though. It's kind of.
I do too. The characters.
The slow burn of this is fun,
And then we have the moment where Wanda's holding the twins and she mentions.
And I was going to say, this is when things get really, really good
weird.
because, and weird, really good, whatever, because this is again where Wanda breaks from this false sense of reality at the moment. And she mentions her
Pietro.
brother Pietro.
Which is the first time she's ever mentioned him. Actually, to think about it, I don't think that she's really mentioned him since Avengers 2.
I don't remember specifically, but I think you might be right.
She mentioned she was a twin.
Yep, and then she starts singing what I assume is a Sokovian nursery rhyme or something like that, which once again is starting to reveal the real Wanda at this moment, because she starts talking with her accent as well in this scene, if you notice that.
Which was really great reference to people who say, oh, it's weird how she dropped her accent. And
so this false reality that she's creating also is changing her altogether. But again, now the real Wanda is starting to peek through. And then this is where Geraldine really fucks up. And this had me laughing and also just on the edge of my seat because I thought it was so dope. Geraldine decides, Geraldine realizes what you just said too, that like, wait, this is the first moment that real reality has ever shown itself in this.
Actually, I have a different interpretation of that, but go ahead.
So this is the first time where the real reality is kind of seeping through. And I think that Geraldine says to herself, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to see, how much I can, dive into this water here, like if I can break her out of this fantasy, let's see. But why on earth would you ever mention Ultron, the person who killed her brother? She's having a sympathetic moment, looking at her children, right? Noticing that they're twins, remembering her brother who was a twin. And then you're going to mention the dude that killed her brother? So funny, though, that...
I actually have a different interpretation of that. I don't think so. This goes into episode 4, where we learn where Geraldine comes from. Now, Geraldine, I think at that moment when Wanda mentions Pietro, she allows her guard down, which kind of weakened the veneer of this illusion that's around them. And Geraldine's actual thoughts come into play, where she goes, he was killed by Ultron, wasn't he? And because you see after when Wanda realizes what she said and she goes, what did you say? And Geraldine's mind kind of, I think that people who are unwillingly in that world have a little bit of amnesia from the prior world, unless Wanda allows them to have their memory a little back.
Well, now that we kind of know what happens in the next episode, that's making a little bit more sense to me.
Yeah.
Because there was that moment where Geraldine's like, wait, what'd you say?
Yeah. And she kind of looked like, she didn't look like she was trying to backtrack. She looked like she was actually trying to remember. And then she went into, she's like, oh, I'm so happy.
She was like
for
snapping
you.
out of it.
Yeah. And then Wanda goes, but Wanda couldn't snap out of it because Geraldine broke the reality for her.
But in that moment, this is when the real Wanda, the real Scarlet Witch appears again, which is what I'm loving. These moments of this character and then breaking character. And then, we see for the first time in this series, the Scarlet Witch that we remember from Age of Ultron, from Infinity War, from Endgame, the badass Wanda that we know and love, the one that we also fear. You know what I mean?
The one that's not to be trifled with.
Meanwhile, while this is going on, outside, Herb and Agnes are trying to tell Vision that we mentioned that Geraldine doesn't belong here. And Herb wants to tell Vision something, but hides it.
He keeps saying, she came here because we are all... And he couldn't quite finish the sentence. And Agnes kept trying to stop him from finishing the sentence. But it looked like Herb wasn't actually able to finish the sentence. Like he had something important to tell Vision about Geraldine and where she came from and why. But he was unable to. And then all of a sudden, Vision decides, all right, I'm done with this conversation. And he goes inside.
Yeah, I can't put my finger on it. Something's up, obviously, but but what,
And he goes inside, and of course...
So Vision goes back inside, right? And then he's like, where's Geraldine?
And Wanda says, oh, she went home, which is contradictory to what Agnes and Herb just told her, that Geraldine doesn't have a home.
And the look though on Wanda's face when she was like, oh, she went home, because her back was turned to him when she said that, and the look on her face was of like evil satisfaction.
It was almost like she was in a serene world, like she knew she did something bad, but she was able to push it aside behind her head.
So then this is where the show again just becomes so cool and different and weird. That the screen changes, the aspect ratio of the picture on the screen changes. And then we see a sign that says Westview, right? The welcome to Westview, or this town of Westview. And then now we're drawn into what is the real reality.
Mm-hmm. There was actually to go into deeper about the aspect ratio. Back in the day, our televisions were perfect squares, but movie screens were rectangles. And so, do you remember when letterboxing first came out? What they would do to put movies onto VHS tapes, they would cut the sides off of it to be a perfect square. And like you said, the screen kind of extended out and then like came down from top and bottom.
Yeah.
I thought it was really, like you said, it was bringing us back to reality outside of the television world.
Definitely gave us a different, it felt like you were in the different perspective, you know?
And then we saw Geraldine outside on the grass. She was basically thrown out of this force field with lights and helicopters zooming on her, laying on the ground. And if you notice too, she was still wearing the clothes she was wearing in the episode from the 70s.
Yeah. And there we go. That's
that's
how the episode ends.
Well, the episode ends with also a song from the Monkees. And the Monkees, if you don't know, was a show from the 70s, but also a band from the 70s. And the song that was playing was their song, Dream Believer. And if you listen to the lyrics, actually, that it ends on, it's cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer?
Yeah. So this is a daydream in Wanda's head, sort of, right?
Yeah.
This is what they're hinting at. And what's funny is that once you mentioned that to me, after we watched the next episode, I'm starting to realize that these songs at the end of each episode have a purpose. There's a meaning. And we'll talk a little bit about it at the end of the discussion for episode 4, because now it's really starting to click. And I don't know, it's just so much fun watching.
There's a lot of subliminal hints
and making all these connections and all that.
Also, these credits seem to be very long, don't they?
They're like 10 minutes. You think you have like much more of the show to left? You think you have like 7 or 8 minutes left of the show? And it ends up just being like at least 6 minutes of credits.
And I guess I'm also like Pavlov conditioned to think that there's always going to be a mid-credit scene, especially with that, like the colorful aspects and the single actor shown, and then just goes to the regular credits. And I've been fast forwarding and watching all of it thinking, oh, here it is. Here's going to be the extra scene. And no.
And just before the credits though, what did the screen say? Like, please stand by?
Yes.
Yeah, right? And, you know, so this episode leaves us with a whole bunch of questions. Who's doing this to Wanda? Is it SWORD trying to contain her? Is Wanda doing this to herself? Is someone else doing this to her? Does this lead to Wanda being a villain for Doctor Strange? So many unanswered questions, but as the next episode rolls along, some of these questions do get answered. And this picture is starting to get painted a little bit clearly, right?
Oh, I thought that episode 4 was perfect. It's perfectly placed in the season, right in the middle. Because we still have 4 more episodes, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I guess I said last episode that we were going to go through each decade of television shows, and it would be episode 8 that broke the reality of what's going on. And it was actually this episode that broke the reality. And I thought the way they started this episode was absolutely perfect. It was great. There was a lot of speculation and talk about what happened when Hulk snapped his fingers, about people returning, and we got to see that.
Yep, we had episode 4 of WandaVision. We interrupt this program.
WandaVision!
All right, the episode 4 just starts off so amazing. This shit gave me all the feels and excitement. I really love how it connects a bunch of the other MCU films, and we see for the first time people returning back from the snap, right? We're watching the dust in reverse. It was really awesome to see, because we saw people fade away in Infinity War, but I don't remember. Did we see people?
No,
we
we
never
didn't.
saw people come back from the blip,
No,
right?
they just came back.
So
remember?
watching in reverse, the dusts come back into form. We see Monica waking up in a hospital, and there's kind of craziness and commotion going on everywhere. And, it was a little bit confusing at first
I
to try to figure out what the hell was going on because it was like panic.
Well, at first you see her come back in the chair and then she gets up and I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is now time. So what's going on? And then, you know what? I think it was when you made the joke. Remember, like we see someone form right outside the door, but at that point I really didn't pick it up. It was when she slammed into the guy that formed right in front of her.
Yeah.
But she bumped into the guy that came right back. And I was like, oh crap, this is the snap. This is Hulk snap. I was like, wow, this is them. This is people actually coming back and in a hospital. And you see there's pandemonium because in a hospital, like you have all these random people just popping up who shouldn't be there. It was really interesting to watch.
Well, remember the pandemonium that happened at the first snap? We see it during that last scene with Nick Fury and I keep forgetting her name. I'm going to just call her Agent How I Met Your Mother. When
Agent Robin.
Agent Robin, when your Aunt Robin, when they're seen, when they turn to dust. Remember, there was a helicopter that crashed because someone the pilot, I'm assuming, turned to dust. So there was chaos in the streets.
Yeah.
Well, when everyone returned, that same chaos happened because they just appeared from the places I assume they disappeared at. Right. That's why people were in the hospital looking for their loved ones.
Yeah,
or so,
the guy
so,
was
so
asking for a phone, and then she finds a nurse that she recognized.
Yeah, and she asked the nurse, "Where's her mom? I'm looking for my mom." And the nurse is like, "Yo, your mom's been dead, and you've been missing. Like basically, Monica's been disappeared for 5 years."
Yeah, her mom died 3 years before that, which was 2 years after she disappeared. But to her, it felt like 20 minutes. Because remember, she said, I fell asleep for like maybe 20 minutes. Like to her, it was like just a nap.
Yeah, it was just really fun seeing that moment finally of just everyone coming back. And I'm sure that might not be the last moment we see something like that.
I hope
looking
not.
back and looking back at that moment in other MCU films or TV shows, I bet.
Yeah.
I'm sure that moment did a lot of, I don't know if I want to say damage, but a lot of consequences came from that. Remember, I think we were jokingly saying, what happens if, two people during this Infinity War snap, their spouses end up dying, but then they find each other in one of these Cap survivors group and fall in love and get married. Oh, and then 5 years later, all of a sudden their spouses come back. Well, what the fuck, man?
Yeah.
We got some explaining to do. Anyway, but, there might be some consequences like that, though, of the snapture.
What if you were snapped in a building that ends up not being there 5 years later? I always thought about that. Like you just come back. Like, will the return just place you nicely on the floor, or will you find yourself 4 stories up in a building that doesn't exist and just fall straight down?
Well, the next scene picks up with Monica getting back to work at Sword. We find out that her mom was one of the people who started Sword, and she's greeted by an old colleague of hers who she cracks a joke that he looks a little bit older because she's been gone and he's just been getting older.
He cracks a joke that she hasn't aged a bit.
Yeah.
And then she goes, well, you look old as hell. Like, because it is 5 years later to them.
And to me, it kind of seems like Monica is noticing and kind of almost questioning that they're the observing and response, not creation of these sentient forces or whatever.
Well, he does mention AI, which to me, like, I don't think it's a coincidence that the last episode we got a mention of Ultron. In this episode, we find out that Sword is creating artificial intelligence themselves.
And what's kind of fun about that, and when we were talking about this before and putting this together, I was like, what's so dope is in the comics, Ultron comes back several times.
Yeah.
So it would almost be perfect that it would make sense for him to come back again. And in this, it would be fitting for him to come back in this season. Now, here's a little spoiler. If you don't want to hear this, cover your ears for 10 seconds. In the credits for the IMDb of the cast, the actor who does the voice of Ultron is listed. James Spader. Yeah, James Spader is actually listed to be in this. So are we going to see
Maybe
Ultron
he
in
won't
this?
be in the physical form. Do you remember how Dr. Zoll came back in Winter Soldier?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be like that, where a fragment of Ultron's mind, and maybe that will be a way for them to find a way to bring back Vision.
Nice. I'm all for it, but again, this episode starts connecting so many pieces in the MCU.
Yeah.
And there's more to come. Now Monica ends up getting a mission from her boss at Sword, to go help out a FBI agent with a missing persons case.
Which she's not happy about. She wanted immediately to go back up into space. And he said that, no, you're grounded. Anyone who has returned isn't allowed to go on extra other world missions. And she goes, well, who put that in order? And he said, her mom.
Your mom.
Her mom actually created that mandate that if people who were snapped out of existence ever came back, they weren't permitted to, they were to have light duty, I guess, you know? So that was actually a fascinating point. And she got what in her mind was a babysitting job to find missing persons.
But I do like how they're connecting that her wanting to go back into space.
Yes.
Because again, in the comics, you know, she takes the role for a period of time as Captain Marvel. And it's just nice. This all ties back to, again, another MCU film. And you start thinking Captain Marvel and the Kree and the Skrulls and everything else that this is eventually going to lead into too. So, you know, a lot of fun I'm having watching this show. Just every scene I'm having fun watching. Now, so Monica connects with another familiar face, again, connecting us with another movie in the MCU, Ant-Man
And Wasp.
We get Agent Wu, and he's tells her he's been questioning the people of Westview, and they all seem to have some sort of amnesia. He has cops there with him, and they're like, "Oh, we're from Eastview." They have no recollection of anything going on in that town.
They're standing in front of a "Welcome to Westview" sign, and he's basically explaining to her that a contact of his who's supposed to be in the witness protection program is missing.
Yeah,
and that the family doesn't remember him, and he has led him to Westview. Now, there's two police officers standing in front of this "Welcome to Westview" sign, and the cops go, "There's no such thing." And he goes, "You mean there's no such thing as the town of Westview?" As they pan away from these two police officers standing in front of this "Welcome to Westview" sign, population 4,000.
Now, what's interesting to me is I want to know who Agent Wu's missing person is, you know? Because if you remember, he was assigned to Paul Rudd's character, Scott Lang, in Ant-Man when he was under house arrest, right?
Yeah.
He was the one who had to keep checking in and monitoring him. I wonder if like Agent Wu's assignments are usually people with some ability or powers or, you know.
Well, I would think so because he's automatically familiar with Sword. He's the one that requested Sword's use of their drone equipment.
There you go.
So he might have some higher classification to work with special people.
Special interest people, yeah.
Yeah, special interest people.
I have a feeling
so.
that'll come back around as well. I don't think that's, again, just a throwaway moment.
He also said missing persons, and we never get the pronoun he or she. So we don't know if it's a man or a woman. That he's very vague about who he's looking for. I actually picked that up. Well, I have a theory about who I think he's actually looking for.
Do you want to say who you think it is?
I think it's Agnes.
Ooh, interesting.
Because this goes back to another scene later in the show where I also kind of paid attention to something that happened and it made me think that she's the only one that kind of fit out of place compared to everyone else.
Well, for Agent Wu and Monica, you know, they can't get inside this area as Monica walks closer to it. They start to see some sort of like force field around it, right? So then that's when they decide to send in the drone, the little helicopter. And
which looks exactly like the drone we saw in episode 2.
Yeah.
I mean, the Toya helicopter we saw in episode 2.
So yeah, and then we see the helicopter disappeared into the force field, and then they can't see anything even on the screen that they're monitoring it from.
Yeah, and then Monica goes up to the force field and she sees, because at first they're not able to witness the force field. Wu just mentions that the area around Westview has an uninviting feel
Yeah, and
to
it's
it.
like you could feel it, right?
And so she walks up and she sees this kind of, I want to say electronic sheen, but it's not really. It looks like an electrical current that's running in front. And she reaches in and makes like a static sound. She pulls her hand out and she puts her hand even further in and it sucks her right in. And then she disappears.
Yeah, and then the next scene, we're introduced to some old faces.
Oh, I was so happy to see her.
Dr. Darcy Lewis from
She's
the
a doctor
Thor
now.
from the Thor movies, right?
Mhm.
What a joy. She was so funny in all these scenes.
She's such a cynical comedic presence that it was great. Like,
So Sword brings her in to help out, and she finds that there's cosmic radiation at a very, very high rate. And what it's giving back to her is some sort of like radio frequencies. So then she gets the bright idea of, well, let me see if I can like, I don't know, if I can harness these frequencies, get me an old school TV is what she says. Not like one of the flat screens that we have, you know, one of the
she
tube
asked for
TVs.
a round. She says, I need an old TV with a round screen. And I don't even think they're like your niece and nephew like probably haven't ever seen a round screen TV, right?
I don't know.
Like
maybe.
where it curves, like, you know, I remember those things weighed about 50 pounds.
Well, just everything in this episode is just such a mystery, though. You know, I keep saying it because each moment just feels like more questions than answers, right?
Well, it comes to a point where they're trying to figure out, they keep sending drones in, they're trying to get information back in, nothing's coming out. And all of a sudden, the guy from the beginning who Monica was talking to, he's discussing their options and he hears a TV on. And he comes and he sees Darcy watching this old TV and all of them instantly recognize Vision and Wanda. Now, what I picked up on is at that moment, what they're watching is the beginning of episode 1. Now, my thought is the day before is when they kind of noticed like this sheen. What happened before the the TV tapped into the frequency? Like what was going on? I mean, there were no daytime shows based on the 40s or 30s. So was it a different reality? Is there no reality before that? Was this television creation like made when she tapped into the
That's
radio
what I was about to
frequency?
say. Like, is this the
A reaction?
projection of the fantasy
That's going on in
that
there.
Wanda's creating? This
Yeah.
is what they're seeing of that projection.
Yeah. Maybe what's actually occurring there is different. That what we're seeing is the radio interpretation of that by the television. And I mean, it was fascinating to me that like it didn't start off in like a new episode. It was the episodes we've already seen, which actually there's also a difference to that.
Yeah, and you know, as this revealed a little bit by little bit, they start figuring out who the people are in this TV episode.
They start identifying people they see in the show.
And they're identifying people in the real world, it seems,
Yes.
right? And they have a whole board with all of their pictures and their license plates. And here's where we picked up something that was very interesting.
On the whiteboard with the names and driver's license, you notice most of the characters had New Jersey driver's license. It's Westview, New Jersey, except for one, and that's Agnes.
Yep, she's the only one on that board that doesn't have a license attached to her picture.
And what I think is that she doesn't have a government ID attached to her picture. She's either A, not identified as someone that they know in the real world, or B, I think that might be Agent Wu's like missing person.
Mm-hmm.
Either that or Dottie, because I also know Dottie wasn't on that board at all.
Yeah.
The blonde from episode 2. And there have been some theories about who she is, that she may be another witch in the universe who is actually the niece of Dormammu, the big bad from the first Doctor Strange movie, and actually becomes a love interest of Doctor Strange later on.
Interesting.
So,
in the comic books, right?
Yeah, in the comic books. Or maybe she's not that character. Maybe she's actually Nightmare or Mephisto, another manifestation of Mephisto in a different form.
Again, a lot of questions, not enough answers at this point. But I do like how they keep showing them tapping in and watching the events that we watched in the first 2 episodes, basically. And even at one point, Darcy realizes, oh, there's Monica. What is she doing in there? What is she wearing? Did she like she's like, is she okay? They're trying to figure out, is like, does she know she's there? Is she okay? And then she seems like everything's fine, but they're like, what the hell is she doing in this reality, right?
Well, Agent Wu remarks that because at first Darcy thinks that, oh, is she in deep cover, like trying to fit in? But Agent Wu says that her demeanor and actions are very different than the woman he met the day before.
And that goes back to what you said before, is that when she has that moment where Monica snaps out, or Geraldine snaps out of that false reality, and she's starting to like remember things. And when she mentions the Ultron thing, maybe that goes back to what you said, is that whole thing is not her. That character is not, she's not in control of it.
No, she's kind of being put
she's
into an
being
amnesia,
manipulated, like everyone else in that town seems to be being manipulated, right? Because based on that board that they showed, these are real people that live in Westview, New Jersey, and they're being controlled right now by this fantasy reality that's going on, right?
Yeah. So we also got a reveal about a mysterious character that was speculated on at the end of episode 2, when Wanda and Vision go outside the house and they see a beekeeper coming out from below the sewers. Now, people thought it might be Wasp, might be different characters like Swarm, a villain that fought Spider-Man. Now, we see them try to go underneath Westview by sewer system. And they have a guy in a hazmat suit tethered to a cord going through. And there were two things I liked a lot about this. And we saw that, I guess, the atmosphere that they're living in, this world, retrofits anything modern to fit that environment. We saw it with the drone that turned into an old school helicopter. And when the guy in the hazmat suit goes through, his tether turns into an old school plastic jump rope. And then his outfit turns into a beekeeper uniform.
Yeah, that was dope. I really love that part.
Which to me was kind of fitting because, I mean, what else would a hazmat suit look like to someone from that era?
Which is fun because remember all the speculation, like you said, after episode 2 of who that the beekeeper was, but then you notice the sword logo on his back. And although at the moment we didn't know who Sword necessarily was, or at least most viewers, unless you're like an uber comic nerd, knew who Sword was and the logo and everything. I wasn't that familiar with it, to be honest. But we see that they are on what we're assuming is the good side at this point, right? Because the logo had the big sword on his back, but we thought this could be a bad guy, but it turns out he's probably...
Well, they're a response team.
Yeah, and it seems like they're on the good... If I had to put them on a side, I'm leaning good right now because they're trying to help the situation, but we'll see.
I assume they're the new SHIELD.
Yeah.
Because SHIELD's no longer anymore. SHIELD has disbanded after the events of Hydra invasion. And right now, there's no SHIELD to investigate these kind of phenomena. So Sword is the new SHIELD, investigating and responding to events.
So if you remember that beekeeper moment when Wanda sees him and says no, it does the rewind and it's that kind of skip backwards again. Now, what we got to see in this episode, episode 4, is that when Darcy's watching the version of the TV show, the skips and the rewind don't happen the way we saw them. They just are quick cut scenes in the version that Agent Wu and Darcy have been seeing it.
Yeah, we see the cuts differently than they do. That their cuts are almost like, bad editing, I would say. And we did find out too that the voice on the radio with Wanda and Dottie from episode 2 is actually Agent Wu trying to contact them.
Yeah, so then at the end of the episode, when Wanda's looking, or when Darcy's looking at what is episode 2 through her monitor, we see Wanda at the poolside with Dottie and that whole scene. And this is when Darcy says, well, let's try to get radio frequencies through to them. And next time they're near a radio, we'll try this. So when they finally see them near a radio in that scene, that's when Wu gets on the walkie-talkie or whatever the hell he's trying to break into their frequencies. And we hear the Wanda, who's doing this to you, Wanda, you know? I loved it. It was
Yeah.
like all these like it's these pieces or these dots are being connected like
There was a lot of reveal in this about what's going on. Like also, so remember we talked about in episode 3, Monica Geraldine accidentally mentions Ultron, and they saw that. Darcy and Wu saw that, and Darcy even says, "Wait a minute, is this the first time they've referenced the real world?" But then in the episode we saw in episode 3, Wanda goes, "What did you say?" And she goes, "You have to leave." But to Darcy and Wu, it just, Wanda goes, "What did you say?" And then it cut to the credits with Wanda and Vision sitting on the couch with the baby in hand and the credits rolling.
So what that tells me is that Wanda is in charge because she is controlling what is being broadcast, so to speak, because she didn't want them seeing Geraldine getting thrown through the wall. So they just had a quick cut to the credits and they're like, wait, what just happened? And even I feel like there was a difference with the scene before when they're showing that episode 2 scene when Darcy's viewing it, when Dottie gets her hand cut. I don't know. Maybe they just did it to save time, but they don't show the scene where the radio explodes and the glass drops. It just goes to Geraldine like shaking her hand and like walking away, saying something. Dottie shaking her hand and walking away or something like that.
She makes the joke about housewives and cleaning to Wanda, and then that was it.
But there was that weird tension moment in the second episode that we saw that we don't see Darcy seeing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, I feel like that was another moment where Wanda controls what's being viewed. It's a skip.
What's being broadcast out. Then we got to see actually an event play out at the end that didn't even play out to us or Darcy and Wu, where after Monica mentions as Geraldine Ultron, Wanda reacts and says, "What did you say?" And she goes, and she says immediately, "How do you know about Ultron?" She doesn't say who's Ultron or what do you mean Ultron? She goes, "How do you know about Ultron?" And then she basically says, "You need to leave," and kind of throws her out of the town completely, like Superman's her through the entire world.
So another thing that we found out in this episode was that the person at the end of episode 1 who was monitoring this on the TV, you see that hand close a book, it ended up being Darcy, who was in this episode monitoring the whole situation, right?
Yeah.
So that was really fun.
She's actually watching it like a sitcom.
Yeah.
I kind of love that, where she goes along with the make-believe audience, goes, "Aw," like when she finds out that she's pregnant.
And I love how it just all comes back around. You know what I'm saying? This whole carousel keeps spinning and these pieces keep, connecting. And then, the episode finally ends
with Wanda ejecting Monica out of her reality, creates a hole in her wall, fixes it. And you kind of remember in episode 1, we talked about how like Elizabeth Olsen is such a great actress because at one point she breaks out of this. She stares at Vision like she can't believe he's there, and then gets back into the moment. We see this after she ejects Darcy. She has this angry look on her face, and then she's kind of looking over the hole in the wall and then fixes it. And then Vision comes up behind her.
Oh, yeah. And then she turns around and Vision comes in, and then it's dead Vision.
It's dead Vision.
It's the Vision from when Thanos ripped the fucking stone out of his head. That was such a cool moment. Again, reality, I feel, is peeking in. That's reality saying to Wanda, he's really dead. He's not here. He's dead. What'd you think?
I think it's the same thing. She says, to Vision, because Vision says we can
leave or whatever.
We can leave
like
and
that.
go wherever we want. But after she kind of snaps out of the dead Vision view, and she goes, "No, this is our home. I'm in control here." And kind of has, like you said before, like that creepy villain who's satisfied with their deed look, like that evil contempt and fullness that they did something terrible, but they're kind of happy about it. and she kind of gets back into the moment where she's, the happy-go-lucky housewife with the two children and the husband.
Yep, sitting on the couch, content, right?
Yeah.
And then again, though, the show ends with another song where there's like these little Easter eggs in it. It's the Jimi Hendrix Experience and the song Voodoo Child, and it's actually parentheses slight return. And what I feel that they're saying with that was, well, that was the slight return of Scarlet Witch. That wasn't the full version. That was the slight return. We're going to see something much crazier down the road.
Well, we also see Monica be kind of surrounded by her fellow sword people, and the only thing she says is it's Wanda. She's doing this.
Yeah.
And she basically reveals to them, and maybe like that's why I'm excited for episode 5, because I want to like, does she fully remember the situation? Like, she'll basically give light on what was going on. Was she in control? Was she not in control? Did she purposely mention the Ultron moment? Was it a slip of the mind?
Yep.
Like, she'll kind of give us an idea of what's really going on in there.
And this is what's exciting about the show for me, is that we have this week in between for our imaginations to just run wild before we get those answers. And again, we could be totally off base with all this hyperbole, but it's kind of fun.
No, it's a lot of fun, and I'm very happy they're doing the week-to-week release and not the Netflix way of just releasing everything at once. I feel it's a better way to watch.
And it's smart for them because they keep subscribers longer.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, I would have finished it a week ago, and we would have done just one episode on this entire series. But now here we are, just 2 weeks later, going over just episode 3 and 4 instead of episode 1 through 8.
All right, so there you go. Episodes 3 and 4 of WandaVision. All right, so with that brings us to the end of our show. We have a Pop Funko giveaway going on right now on our YouTube channel, specifically for our YouTube subscribers. All you have to do is subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and leave a comment, and please share, and you're automatically entered into our contest. We're going to be giving away this Pop Funko of Super Skrull later on this year. So again, subscribe, like, comment, share. That's all you got to do. A winner will be chosen at random later this year, and we have more giveaways going on. So please hit that notification bell to be up to date on all our prizes and shows. Remember, we also got new content up on our YouTube channel, Infinite Multiverse. First episode's up now if you're a Star Wars fan, Star Wars geek, or if you're just a fan of fan fiction, this is perfect for you. Check it out, Obi-Wan, If He Turned to the Dark Side. Ben does a great breakdown and a cool story. You got to check it out. Give us a like. Don't forget, we're out there as well on social media, Instagram at Infinite Universe Podcast. We've been having a lot of fun interacting with you guys on there, hitting us up with our theories, your likes, your dislikes, all that fun stuff. I'm really enjoying our fan base growing. We're getting a lot more subscribers and listeners, so that's a lot of fun. And we're also out there on Twitter. We're trying to, work on that. We've been slacking, but hit us up on that at Infinite Unipod. We're also out there individually. I'm at Jade NYC, and
I'm at Pumpkin Claw on Twitter and Instagram, and you can check me out at BH Pumpkin Claw on YouTube.
Yep, if you're a fan of horror and all that fun, dark, macabre, definitely check out Ben's channel, BH Pumpkin Claw. All right, with that is the end of the Infinite Universe Podcast. Until next time, we're your hosts. I'm Jade.
I'm Ben Pumpkin Claw.
And remember, although we may be a-holes, we are not 100% dicks. Until next time, we're out of here.
Peace.